Hello and welcome to the show. This week's Failrace versus the community. We were using open B-class cars in our first race at the Silverstone International Circuit. Unfortunately, there was one lucky car causing a little bit of trouble on the start line. We saw a Golf get pinged off the track. A little bit of a shame, but we know what Forza can be like. You can get to see it bouncing around in the background. The Evo that we were following had a very good start, managing to navigate his way through the chaos, picking up a number of places as Camaro and Lotus fought through the first few corners. The Evo had made its way up well through the order as a Shelby Cobra carries a cone quite a long way down the back straight. The Evo has a fantastic run on the NSX ahead of it. Ignore the smoke, just a laggy replay going on. Evo ends up on the outside. The NSX covers. It can be done going around the outside. At that corner, the Camaro's made its way up to right behind the Mitsubishi. It is a little bit of a harder manoeuvre to pull off. Camaro has a big look, but he's then on the outside for this final. It's kind of a nasty chicane, this one. The rest of the track is relatively fast, relatively flowing, as the Mitsubishi gets a little bit of understeer and ends up out wide around the final corner. Camaro's got himself to the inside. Camaro would get the pass done as they come on to the next lap. The Shelby that was leading the way had an off and would drop back through the field, so it was the NSX that led the charge as we come down the back straight. The Evo was quicker than the Camaro. They were both, though, quicker than the NSX. And then we come to what I said, it's very hard to go around the outside of this corner, let alone go around the outside of two cars, but that's what the Camaro does. He keeps it all the way around the outside of the NSX and the Mitsubishi as they come up towards the chicane. Now you're on the inside line for the final technical section. The Honda tries to do a cutback. The Mitsubishi ends up across the grass trying to do a cutback. Didn't quite get that one to work. And in the end, the Camaro comes out on top. And as the Mitsubishi and the NSX fight a little bit, NSX goes very wide at the final turn. And yeah, he's just got that nice and sort of sensible little gap back to the cars behind him, which is always nice to have that. Anything that the leaders could do, though, us further back would try and replicate it and do a little bit more spectacularly. As Fiat got a wheel on the grass through turn 2 on the exit of turn 2, couldn't stop it. We all did well to avoid them. This was a 4-car battle, almost a 5-car battle, as the Corvette would join in over what was now 5th place. Leading the charge was a Lotus Exige. However, the Lotus didn't have the straight line speed of my Alfa, the BMW, or the Shelby, for that matter, or the Corvette that was catching quite quickly. As we proceed to go 3 wide at one point, we very nearly, well, we do make it 4 wide into the braking zone. I'm on the outside through all of this. The BMW tries to get to the inside, just tags the Shelby ever so slightly. They all go sliding. The Lotus follows me around the outside. Somehow my Alfa went around the outside of everybody through 4 wide at that part of the track. I was waiting for that to end in disaster. I ran a little bit too deep into this final chicane, but I can get away with it. The BMW behind me gets even more understeer than I was having and ends up out wide. Yeah, I expected that to end in utter disaster, but amazingly we made it through. We all got through without a really huge accident. I was using the Alfa Romeo SZ. I wanted to use something different. It was very tempting to go with my Corvette. I have a very, very fast B-class Corvette Stingray, but I wanted to use something different. I liked this Alfa. As a hot lapping car, this is a very, very fast vehicle, quicker than my Corvette. Problem is, in a racing situation, this is a much more difficult car to drive. It's a little bit more twitchy. It took quite a while tuning it to try and get it right. It is, yeah, just a little bit more difficult to drive, a little bit more unpredictable. It didn't take me very long at all to catch up to the back of the NSX in 4th, but getting past it, well, that was a whole nother matter. As we go through the first couple of corners, the Honda goes defensive, and around the outside, I had a little bit too much understeer for me to really deal with. I'm trying to jump across the curves. In doing so, though, I get my Alfa onto 2 wheels, get a big twitch, managed to catch it. I was always worried about spinning this car. Managed to catch it, but now I've just given the Honda just that safety margin as we come down the back straight. My Alfa's the quicker car, but I was just, at this stage of the race, was unable to find a way past. The NSX in 2nd was gradually dropping back from the Camaro, and the Mitsubishi was wanting to find a way past as the Honda had some more understeer on the final turn, ran a bit wide. That was the invitation that the Evo 6 needed to get up the inside into turn 1. The NSX tries to cut back, ends up across the curb. It certainly doesn't help going across there. It's a nasty curb. Often see cars up on 2 wheels. The Honda's looking, but the Mitsubishi's just too far ahead. The Evo can cover the inside. The NSX gives him a little bit of a bump through the corner, Yeah, the Honda just couldn't quite find a way past, or find a way back past, and then we come to the long back straight. While the NSX was quick onto the straight, but you can't really go wrong with an NSX for a B-class car. They are very good handling vehicles. It didn't have the speed. It just couldn't match the Evo's straight line speed. My frustrations continued. Again, I had a very quick car, but I could not find a way past the NSX in front of me. I was trying everything I could to get past him, but nothing was quite working. He was defending very, very well, and as I tried slightly more interesting lines, I'd make a little mistake and give him sort of half a lap of safety and so on, and he could just keep ahead of me. Again, almost identical story through this first section. We get lovely close-ups of the back of the NSX. He just moves over to the inside. I was getting brave. I was being experimental, trying around the outside this time, but I can't do it. Get a little bump from the Honda, and I'm just out too wide to make the maneuver stick, and then I'm trying to carry too much speed onto the back straight. I know I had good straight line speed in the Alpha. The NSX ran wide. I was across the grass a little bit rallycross from the from the Alpha. But again, I'd just given him that safety margin. There was some frustration in the Alpha. At the front, though, it was the Camaro that would go on to take victory, pulling a gap back while the rest of us squabbled. If me, him, and the Evo had all been close together, it could have been a very, very interesting race between us. We all had fast cars at different parts of the track, but the Camaro made no mistakes and would pull. You can see the Evo in the background, not the most comfortable of victories we've seen, but yeah, the Camaro would take victory at a very impressive overtake around the outside to the end of the course. This first race had been fantastic, been really very, very good fun throughout the field. This was a battle over, I think it was 8th or 9th place between a Shelby Cobra and the Lotus Exige. The Lotus, of course, with all of the handling, but had no hope of matching the Shelby for straight line speed. This was the closest, though, the Lotus had been as they came down the back straight on the final lap. He was side by side with the Shelby coming onto the straight. Of course, can't match it for speed, but he is now much closer coming into these final sections. Get a good run through that corner, and then your best bet is have a big dive into the chicane. Shelby goes defensive. Lotus is perfectly happy to go around the outside. That will put you on the inside for the next part, but the Lotus gets a little bit of an oversteer moment. I think perhaps a tiny little bit of lag and an oversteery Lotus, perhaps twitchy Lotus, and the Shelby gets himself back past. The Shelby would beat the Exige across the line. Race 1 had been a very, very interesting race, been very, very good fun. The next race, we would go to the Road America West Circuit, not using the alternate layout. I wanted to try a slightly different version of this track. I normally use the one with the chicane, but yeah, for this one here, we would go a slightly different one. I had all manner of problems on lap 1 with making mistakes that were completely my fault. The Nissan that we were following got past 2 cars on the run down the very long start-finish straight almost. The Audi TT had a look at trying to get on the inside, couldn't really do a huge amount about it. Yeah, this Nissan had made good progress up through the field. Ahead of him, a Datsun and a BMW were fighting for positions. The BMW ran a little bit wide. Datsun got to the inside. Nissan was busy trying to follow him through, trying to get past the BMW. Takes a little bit of a wide line through the next corner. The Datsun gets the position of a laggy spin from a Lotus further back. Again, the Nissan's having a look, but is a little too far back to try anything on the BMW as the rest of the cars all filter through. Further back, there was a Dodge trying to fend off 2 Nissan 370Zs. Of course, the Challenger very, very fast in a straight line, but no match for the Nissans through the corner. The white car here gets to the inside around the really long corner, gets a little bit of understeer, has to just dab on the brakes. The grey car tries to get the cutback on the inside as they run down past the start-finish line. Then it's through the kink, this very, very high speed. It's sort of on the border of being flat out, and the Challenger just doesn't have the grip of the 370Z. Ends off visiting the wall with the greyness and following as well. It's a scary, scary corner with these cars. I would catch this squabbling pair relatively quickly as well. As I said, I had a shocking first lap, making all manner of mistakes and going off visiting the grass, so I lost a huge amount of time. Had a lot of work to do. I get myself around the outside of the Nissan. Nissan almost held it, but then in sort of trying to carry the speed to fend off me, ran wide and lost 2 more positions. And that's what happens when you've got such close groups of cars. One little mistake is all it takes for you to drop well through the order. At the front, it was a 65 Mustang that was leading the way, but was quickly coming under pressure from a Datsun as they round the very long final corner. The Datsun just has more grip, gets his car to the inside. The Mustang does have the straight line speed as they head down towards the kink of turn 1, but going around the outside there is another very, very scary corner to get a pass done. The Mustang ends up off the road. The BMW and Nissan in the background both go sliding past as well, and the Datsun has the lead and a relative safety margin back to the Mustang after his little bit of rallycross. The Nissan would have an unfortunate incident with the curb, very similar to the incident I had with a Punto a couple of weeks ago at this track. Hit the curb, got the car spun and smacked a wall. While the vehicle was still working, you know, the engine wasn't smoking and so on, I'm assuming aero damage, suspension, brake damage and so on, the Nissan was not driving as well as it had been at the start of the race. The 370Z put some move on it, although the 300ZX was not giving up. He was fighting back, and now I was with this group having a look, trying to find a way past. The 370Z was on the inside. However, he gets things wrong. I'm not quite sure. He gets it very, very wrong. Gets it very sideways. I don't know if it was a dip the wheel on the curb on the outside, and that just kind of overloaded everything because he tried to catch it. Either way, that was quite a scary moment as all three of us were fitting in a very small piece of tarmac, and the lead car goes round in a circle. It's not really ideal for that one. Amazingly, we all managed to avoid him. That could have been a really nasty accident, but we all managed to get on the brakes and swerve out of the way in time. The 300ZX did have a little bit of a gap back to me, but that was quickly vanishing as I just had my car was in good condition and was a very, very quick car around here. As we come down the start-finish straight, I end up with a wheel on the grass, couldn't get my car off the grass. It's my turn to do the brave kamikaze thing around the outside at turn 1. I didn't really expect the manoeuvre to quite work. Certainly helped by the Nissan getting a big slide halfway through that corner. That is not an overtaking manoeuvre I would recommend around the outside of turn 1. It can be done, but yeah, that was less than comfortable getting that pass done. Despite his spin, it wouldn't take long for the 370Z, to catch back up to the back of the ZX and continue to probe, looking for a way past around the outside with a bit of a slide from the 370, but it would put him on the inside for the next corner. Again, you see the 300 having all manner of sideways issue. I was suspecting broken suspension on that car was causing quite a few issues, and while it was close, it's sort of still there having a look through this section. Certainly around the corners, you know, with damaged suspension and so on, you can still keep up if you're brave, but you will lose massive amounts on the straights. And in the end, the damage to the 300 was just too much to really fight off the cars around him. At the front, though, it was the Datsun that would go on to take victory, putting a relatively large margin back to the cars behind them. A BMW M3 would come home in second place, and following the demise of the Nissan, the 65 Mustang would take a third, and despite my god-awful first lap, I would recover up to fourth. Again, I would have liked to have been involved at the fights at the front. That time, yeah, my slight silly mistake. The Alpha, as I said, really good hot lap car. It struggled a little bit more in the racing situations, just being that little bit more difficult to drive. Race 3, and we would head to the Nürburgring GP circuit. The fear is always at turn 1 here, as everybody pretty much goes 3 wide through the first corner. Amazingly, though, at the hairpin, everybody made it through cleanly, which is really rare. It's very rare we ever get everybody through there. It's such a sort of, you have such speed coming into it, and then all concertinas up. We often have incidences, but we made it through this time. Unfortunately, it'll be a couple of corners later through here where further back things will go a little bit wrong when 3 cars tried to fit into the space of 1, and that, well, never ends particularly well. A Cyclone and a Countach got turned around. I had to go rally crossing to avoid all of that chaos. At the front, though, a Challenger led the way from a BMW M3. This Hemi Cuda had a good start to get himself up into third, was being followed by an MX-5 and a Ford GT40. Yeah, it was... We've had a lot worse starts, certainly, when it comes to Nürburgring. As I said, I'd had to take quite large evasive action to avoid a little bit of carnage on lap 1, and I was working my way through the order, going around the outside of a Subaru BRZ through the fast chicane there. That's also not my favourite of overtaking positions to get moves done. Subaru kind of kept himself on the inside. I wasn't quite sure where he was making sure that he had space there. In the end, he couldn't quite fire his car up the inside enough to get a pass done. He then gets a big slide on the way through the next corner. My next target was an A86. We ran down the back straight. My Alpha had a lot more of the straight line speed. I gave the Toyota a bit of a hurry up bump as we head down towards the very tight chicane, but I was stuck on the outside. The Toyota was good under brakes. The BRZ was good under brakes as well. He was sniffing about on the inside. A Hemi Cuda ahead had a moment with a curb and ended up pointing backwards. Fortunately, got out of the way of all of us as we came tearing past. The Toyota would continue to defend his position. A little laggy moment would drop me to the back of this group, but the Toyota was holding on against the BRZ as he had a move. The Firebird was now coming into play with huge straight line speed, but not quite as much cornering. Toyota hanged the Firebird out around the outside. That gave me an opportunity further back to get myself to the inside. A little bit of a bump on the Firebird. Unfortunately for the Toyota, the BRZ had got through, and all his defending was for naught as he made a mistake coming through the chicane, ended up out on the sand, and it would allow all of us past. Anyway, he did a valiant effort to try and hold us off, but it only lasted for so long. At the front, the Challenger had outbraked himself into the first hairpin. At one point, dropped back to third, which meant the BMW was leading the way from the Hemi Cuda. The Challenger, as I said, in third, ahead of the GT40 and the MX-5. And this group remained in this kind of long train for the opening sort of 2 or 3 laps. They remained sort of like this distance. No one was really making any ground. If anything, the gaps were just starting to open up a little bit between all of these cars, but they were all still well within sort of visual range of one another. The thing was that the group behind them, sort of the 6th, 7th and 8th, the group which I was in with the Subaru and the Pontiac, we were catching. Me and the Pontiac were 2 of the fastest cars on track here, setting some of the fastest laps, despite consistently arguing with each other. The Countach that got spun around on lap 1 was to be the fastest car of all of us, but despite us squabbling, me and the Pontiac were going very, very quickly, and we were pushing the Subaru along with us. Subaru certainly wasn't slow, and you can see we were catching the group ahead. Despite our squabblings for position, we were reeling the group ahead in really rather quickly. I get a big slide through the corner. The Firebird, though, just doesn't quite have the grip through these turns, and I couldn't find a way past the Subaru. Now we're right up to this group ahead. The MX-5, the GT40, not far ahead. I try to be brave, try to get his power down as soon as I can to get around the outside of the Subaru, but I can't quite do it. I could never quite position my Alpha in the right place to get a run on the Subaru. And then when things would go wrong for the Subaru, he gets a little bit too tight to a line across the grass. That then compromised me. As he came back on the track, I had nowhere to go, give him a little bit of a bump. Just slows me down enough, gives the Subaru a little bit of a get-go, and now the Firebird is up the inside of me. The Subaru goes defensive. I try to be brave around the outside of the hairpin, didn't really expect it to come off. I did better than I thought, though. I managed to, again, keep my position ahead of the Firebird. I was in this really awkward position. I really wanted to attack the car ahead. If I could get past the Subaru, I thought I could challenge the leaders, potentially. Problem was, if I get too aggressive on the BRZ, I'd let the Firebird through, and the Firebird was also very, very quick. So, yeah, it was a very tough one. Do I defend or do I attack? And yeah, I was trying my best to get past the Subaru, but even with him having a big slide in the uphill chicane, I just didn't quite have the grip. The Alpha, to kind of stop it being horribly twitchy, I had to make it quite understeery. I could drive the car with understeer, I could drive it quickly while it was a little bit understeery, but I was having problems through some of the faster corners in keeping up, and now we're on a straight. Now the Firebird is right there having a look, trying to find a way past, cover the inside as we come into the chicane. You're not likely to fit around the outside there. I throw the Alpha across the curves, but I'm a little bit too far back again to try anything on the BRZ, and I'm having to defend yet again from the Firebird, trying to have a sneak up the inside. There wasn't really an Alpha's gap there, though, for that one, and so the train continued. At the front, things were much calmer for the BMW. He got the lead early on and would pull a fairly sizable gap. As I said, for the first few laps, the gaps remained relatively close. Later on, the BMW would start pulling away from the cars behind and would have a relatively comfortable margin. You can just about see the Hemi Cuda back there in second. Yeah, relatively comfortable margin of a victory for the BMW. The Hemi Cuda would come home in second. Third was a little bit closer. The Challenger had held on to third for most of the race. On the final lap, the BRZ was catching and had a huge dive into the chicane. Everything locked up, but it got it stopped on the inside, and the Challenger just couldn't fight back. The Dodge much faster in a straight. It had a lot more top speed and so on, but the BRZ just that much better through the corners, that much better on the brakes, get the move done. That was an impressive dive from a long way back, got it done, and well done for the Dodge for giving him space and seeing him coming there. The BRZ would take third place, with the Dodge falling to fourth on the final lap. Further back, things went a little bit wrong for us. Me and the Firebird had a coming together that put me round, slowed the Firebird down, and in the end, the MX-5 got caught up with our shenanigans as well. The GT40 would succumb to a lag spin, and for the final lap, well, this was the fight for 5th. We were all squabbling over the 5th place here. I had a much faster car than the GT40, as did the Firebird. We could not find a way past. The GT had so much straight line speed, I couldn't out-drag him down any of the straights and through the corners. Again, I was never quite close enough, never quite could get my car to the inside, and the MX-5 was there sniffing around if anything happened. If me and the GT40 had a coming together and the Firebird was involved, the Mazda could easily get the lot of us. Now we come down this back straight, and again, I'm too far back. The Firebird is practically pushing me down the back straight. I make sure to cover the inside. I was not going to let the Pontiac through on there. My best bet was to really attack the chicane, which I could do. The Alpha was good through here. Problem was the GT was just in all the positions that I wanted to be, and there was just no way that I could get my car alongside or get it to the inside. The final turn, the Ford left a little bit of a gap. I could sneak my Alpha up there, and I got a really good run off the turn, but it was no match for the power of the GT40. The Firebird, well, that would proceed to pretty much bump me across the line as well as we finished. It was a fantastic race. It was probably one of my favourite races we've done in Versus. In fact, this whole evening, it was really, really good racing. I was involved in a lot of frantic battles with my Alpha SZ. It was a great car. This one, little tricky to drive, certainly not the easiest of cars, and I think that may have hindered me a little bit. Wasn't quite as confident with some of the overtakes, but yeah, very, very, very good fun in this racing. A little bit shame about a bump in the final race, but that happens. Either way, was yeah, plenty of close action in this one. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 27th of August. We're going to be going to Horizon 2, racing some C-Class Classic Rally cars. These are the cars that the game puts in the Classic Rally category. So the 65 Mini, the Lancia Stratos, the Lancia Fulvia, the Ford Escort, and the Fiat 131. They must also be kept with the driveline, that's all their standard driveline. Yeah, we're going to be racing them. We're not going to be racing them on Storm Island, so you don't need that DLC. However, we'll be racing them on the kind of the rally cross circuits, if you like, that are in the normal Horizon game. If you want to sign up and take part in that event, then you can go to our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the Failrace Versus the Community section, and you can find out all the information and sign up in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.